went from Walter Cronkite basically to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, I guess like dinosaur type of animals, roamed the earth when people did.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing this fine day? Today we have Cenk Uygur, and he is taking his shots at The View for some pretty hot takes that they have on Joe Rogan. It is quite interesting to listen to what they have to say. So why don't you sit back and we'll listen to Cenk as he shreds The View's insane attack on Joe Rogan. The left eats the left.
On yesterday's episode of The View, Joy Behar suggested that Joe Rogan is not reliable and trustworthy news source because he believes in dragons. We'll get into the context of Rogan's comments in a second and show you a clip, but first, let's really dive into where this came from. The panel was discussing a new Pew Research Center poll about Americans' experiences with social media news influencers. Take a look at this chart right here. About 1 in 5 Americans regularly get their news from news influencers. 21%, 51% don't, and 28% don't get it from social media at all, let alone the influencers. And breaking it down even further, almost 4 in 10 US adults under age 30 get their news from influencers. You can see right there, 21% for all US adults, but approximately 37% of 18 to 29-year-olds and 26% of 30 to 49-year-olds. The percentages go down from there. Rogan has very well made a name for himself in the news sphere. According to Apple's most popular podcast of 2024, the Joe Rogan Experience was 3rd top show, #1 most followed show, 5th most shared episode with his interview with Trump, and was the 2nd top episode with his Trump interview. And Joy Behar does not like that, so let's watch a little bit more from The View.
Well, I'd like to do a little PSA that just because you saw it on one of these social media sites does not make it true. Right. So circulating posts and then having people say, is that real? Like when you see...
That goes doubly for these chicks. I'm serious. And I said chicks. I'm sorry. I should not have said chicks, okay? Crows. Doubly for this murder of crows.
Something, you have to source it. You have to check and then check again. When you see something that really pisses you off, you should triple check that one.
Yeah. But I think that's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But we're checked by
No, Mom, I haven't had dirty thoughts. I was checked by Satan.
Everybody. Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
The human legal note?
We went from Walter Cronkite basically to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, I guess like dinosaur type of animals, roamed the earth when people did. So this is the type of really, really bad information that's going out there.
Yes, it's a real serious news source when Joy Behar says, we have our own legal department right here, and the audience bursts in laughter. So there is that perspective as well.
How many times has she had to backtrack on things she said in just the past week? I think it's been 4.
Is The View trustworthy news? Let's see about that. Take a look at this clip.
I think that Kamala Harris has been running a flawless campaign, and that's why she raised billions of dollars.
Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border. The border crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some less.
I think Barack Obama was an earnest politician.
I've known Joe 30, 40 years. He doesn't always say the right thing the right way, but he gets stuff done. That's what I'm interested in. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you can't put 2 sentences together. I don't care if he's pooped his pants. I don't care if he can't put a sentence together. Show me he can't do the job. and then I'll say, okay, maybe it's time to go.
I love that Jon Stewart is back, but what's so offensive to me is there's difference between age and intelligence. The problem with this country is that we don't value people with their wisdom. We don't value seniors. We don't value octogenarians. Okay, and I'm sick of this ageism problem.
According to Whoopi Goldberg.
Could we juxtapose this by a few scenes of the Young Turks greasing Bernie Sanders' nuts? I'm serious. Oh my God, hypocrisy is absolutely rife with this channel. It's nuts. TYT is crazy. Send me some comments. Let me know, okay, if you find them just as big of the hypocrites as absolutely I do. And subscribe. Hit that subscribe button.
Apparently, not being able to put a sentence together as the leader of the free world is not something that shows you can't do the job. Fascinating. But back to Rogan and his dragons, which apparently is disqualifying of his opinions. The claim Behar made came from a 2020 episode of JRE with wildlife biologist Forrest Gallant. Rogan was presented by his guest with an out there idea that he said some groups believe, which is that dragons, or a form of dragons, existed at one point along with humans. Gallant said these groups argue that depictions of dragon-like creatures exist in images across multiple cultures, and porous bones could keep what would have been a small group from fossilizing. The topic was then brought up again during an episode with comedian Adrian Palucci a few weeks back. Check this out.
Like I had this guy, Forrest Gallant. He's a wildlife biologist, and he thinks that there's a real possibility that dragons were an actual thing. And that...
Well, when they have lived, like when dinosaurs were around?
No, they lived alongside humans. That's why there's all these records and all these different cultures. And, you know, there's Chinese culture has dragons, Japanese culture has dragons, ancient Europeans have dragons. Like dragon is not a fire breathing, that seems to be, but maybe even...
What kind of, like what would their purpose be?
Well, they're probably like a crocodile that flies. There was probably like more than one kind of really dangerous reptile that they called dragons, like Komodo dragons.
Right, Komodo dragons.
Giant lizard, right. They call it a dragon, right? Crocodiles, dragons. The question is whether or not one of them actually flew. Because we know that pterodactyls were a real thing. And if pterodactyls...
they probably were real then.
Nah. I think it's probably something like that. You know, some kind of like enormous bird-type creature.
If by dragon you mean dangerous, leathery creatures that blow hot air, we just re-elected a president, so I think they are.
You're sitting next to one, pal.
Around. Rogan has since responded to Behar's comment by replying to a tweet where she calls him a dragon believer, saying, "That's my new official X description." And he did, in fact, change his bio on X to Joe Rogan, dragon believer. Interestingly, many, many moons ago, when I started my podcast Last Week on Earth, I asked Joe for advice, and he said to me, "Don't do a news podcast. Too hard to keep up with it, much too much work." Instead, he just did that and became one of the most trusted names in news.
This, by the way, is the best thing to ever happen to John Iadarola.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
exactly.
Like, this is
if
fantastic.
anyone had, believed in dragons, it would be the Dragon Squad
right,
leader.
and the national legitimization of it is fantastic.
Yeah, dragons and humans do coexist on the damage report.
And Trump won despite J.D. Vance dragging the ticket down.
Oh.
I just seriously, J.D. Vance was one of the reasons why Trump did so well. Okay, I just like how they try to manipulate reality and turn it back around. I mean, at one point in time, people were trying to figure out J.D. Vance. That was one of those things because he just comes off so naturally. But I don't think it was ever a drag on the ticket.
Oh, okay, so guys, we're gonna do a poll, and then I want to tell you my dragon theory and my view theory. So the poll is: what's more believable, dragons or Joe Biden was the best candidate in the country? And that is what...
Hey, let's do another one. Okay, what's more believable? Dragons or that Bernie Sanders could have actually won the presidency? Okay, hit me up in the comments about that one. I mean, if you honestly think Bernie Sanders could have won the presidency, we really need to talk, okay?
The View also said and implied many, many times. So, look, first on The View. you saw just a small collection of clips that we put together there, right? But they kept insisting Joe Biden's the best person to run against Donald Trump. Joe Biden's cognitive abilities are fine. And even if they're not fine and he's pooping in his pants, that he's still the best candidate we could possibly put forward. I find all of that as unbelievable as dragons living with humans. Okay, but
at least that's plausible.
What, the dragons?
Dragons.
See, right. Not
well, but except that, you know, nothing has happened to disprove that they were right about Biden, right? I mean, well, thank you. That's all I need. I just needed that face. That's all. You don't even have to say anything. I just wanted the face. I got the face. Actually, can I leave now? Is it?
Okay, so before I get to my dragon theory, so for them to be smug about this and say like, oh, can you believe that there's misinformation in social media? But sisters, what have you been doing for the last year? You know, telling us about how, you know, Joe Biden was amazing and cognitively fit, and then you saw the debate and he was not in good cognitive shape. He was not any of the things that you guys claimed he was. So yeah, ABC News can't fact check your opinions, but your opinions were so biased, so overwhelmingly wrong. And by the way, has anybody there ever admitted it? Like, have they ever said like, oh yeah, our bad. Yeah, Biden was falling apart at the seams. It turns out.
While you're trying to shred the view, have you ever like taken it back and thought about the fact that you as a candidate couldn't do anything? Have you thought about the fact that you still think that Bernie Sanders could have won? Honestly.
Kamala Harris was not flawless. She had one flaw at least, losing the election. By the way, to a guy we said was fascist, Nazi, imbecile, criminal, rapist. But she still lost to him, but she still ran a flawless campaign? Well, okay, I'm gonna have to question what you view to be facts, etc. Now, in terms of the dragons, this is fun. Look, no, they didn't, I would be very surprised if there was fire-breathing dragons ever. And I would be very, very, very surprised if they live with humans. But like, why do dragons exist in all these different cultures? So I've thought about that decades ago. And I think the answer is fairly simple. At some point, they ran into dinosaur fossils, right?
As insane as it may sound, I honestly agree with Cenk at this one. I think the belief in dragons stems from the finding of dinosaur fossils and basically mischaracterizing them as a mythical creature.
They dug it up, and there's this giant head of this creature that they don't know what the hell it is 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and they say, we'll call it a dragon. They don't know what a dinosaur is, right? And where did they make up that it flies and it breathes fire? This is a good story. And they probably based it on the fossils.
And there were things that flew, like you said, pterodactyls. The notion there may have been flying lizards, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people could look at Game of Thrones 100
I really hate to tell you, pal, but there are flying lizards.
years from now and say, look, they believed in dragons. Well, how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, it's in our culture. It's in Game of Thrones. It doesn't mean that we thought it happened yesterday, right? But so
turns out drawings on a wall aren't always factual. Sometimes they're stories.
Yeah. So look, we're doing the poll in the chat. I'm curious as to how it's going to come out. I couldn't quite see that. Oh, dragons is crushing. As more believable at 84 to 16.
It seems a little skewed. I don't know that that's scientific, but you know,
well, okay.
We have our fact checkers here.
No, let me see. I've checked with the fact checkers. Yes, that poll is scientific.
Okay, that's fine.
But also, I mean, Biden was very clearly not cognitively okay even before the 2020 election. I mean, I was talking about that constantly. I'm sure you were. You know, it was very clear he couldn't put two sentences together even before he was elected 4 years ago now. So
actually, I think the Young Turks were conveniently forgetting about the fact that Biden was cognitively deficient 4 years ago.
Ben, was that before or after the cannibals ate his uncle?
I think that was, according to his own speeches, same time.
Yeah.
And the whole leg hair situation too. People rubbed his leg hair, and that was a seminal moment that made him decide to run.
Yeah, so look, I was worried about his cognitive abilities in 2020, but a lot of people disagreed with me. We'll never know about 2020. We certainly know about 2024. But guys, that's not, look, the overall point is...
I swear to God. Okay, did he just say what I think he said? I was worried about his cognitive abilities in 2021, and then he said I wasn't worried about it in 2020. how this man exists in the state of hypocrisy that he does it just amazes me.
If you say there's things that are in social media that you should double check and that are not actually facts, of course, Alex Jones is in social media, verifiable lunatic, Bob from on.
Alex Jones, you're calling him a verifiable lunatic, but Alex Jones has been right more than you ever have, Cenk. Admit it.
Facebook doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and he's not a legitimate source, right? And did Rogan get things wrong? Yes, he got plenty of things wrong, including about the vaccine, and we can go on and on. I don't want to trigger people by saying ivermectin, okay? But oh no, I just said it. Okay, so but that doesn't mean you shut him down, and it doesn't mean that mainstream media has never gotten anything wrong, and it doesn't mean that even if they have fact checkers, that they don't frame issues in a way that is so biased that they don't even realize it's biased, right? And so that's why, like here, one last.
I swear to God, the level of imprinting in this man, it's amazing.
Last thing, and the thing that I always say, which is, you're telling me you guys in mainstream media are not biased.
The thing you always say, by the way, is one last thing.
That's also true. Apparently, I say two last things. Okay, which is, you're telling me the politicians are honest and they're not affected by the billions of dollars they're getting in donations? That's the biggest lie of all. That beats Dragons in a landslide, wins all 50 states, okay? No, politicians are definitely affected by their donors and serve their donors way more than they serve their voters. And you could say that's opinion, okay, but 93% of Americans agree with me, and only 7% of Americans agree with mainstream media. And they find that lie to be so much worse than any other lie they've seen in social media.
Well, everybody, that has been Cenk Shreds, The View's insane attack on Joe Rogan, and the left eats the left. Not surprisingly, again, Cenk is attacking people for the things that he does. I keep saying imprinting, and I know I'm getting that wrong. Please hit me in the comments and tell me exactly what I'm trying to say, because I'll think of it at some point in time anyway. But again, I mean, the level of the hypocrisy that this man and the Young Turks completely do, it's amazing. He's accusing fact checkers of having a bias when this man has more of a bias than any human being ever in existence. And it's just, it's crazy that people actually buy this stuff. I don't know how, but hey, I'm here to call it out. So guys, thank you very much for joining me today. It has been interesting. So talk to you later. I'm going to say later again. Later!